Ravel, ambitious, but brilliant! I don't believe it! I swear I do not believe it! And they are back on terms!
Hello and welcome to New York Talk. This is the Scouting Report. Thank you all for joining us. As our regular viewers will know, what we're going to do is we're going to look at our opposition, look ahead to Tuesday night's game where we visit Morecambe for the first time in a long time. We have Dave Salmon joining us. Thank you for joining us today, Dave, and giving us your time.
Hey, no problem, gents. Thanks for the invitation.
And we have Mick, who is always here, really.
I've never left. I just sit here all day, every day, waiting for you to come online.
And Danny making his Scouting Report debut. Nice to have you with us, Danny.
Nice to be here. It's nice to be on a live stream for once.
Yeah, live debut.
Aye. Try not to swear.
So as we've already mentioned, we've got first league Tuesday night game of the season, second away game of the season, and we face newly promoted Morecambe. Let's start with how last season ended, Dave, because it feels like a little bit of a fairy tale season, Morecambe. We talked before we started recording that they were but in League Two for over 10 years. And from the outside to see a club like Morecambe get into League One, it just looks fantastic from a neutral point of view.
It absolutely does, Matt. I think the perception amongst many football fans within the EFL is little old Morecambe. And I think for many years that has been the case. We've been the perennial strugglers, survivors, but we're actually in League Two for 13 seasons. And at no point, I think we were bottom for a week in that whole time. For many of the seasons, we finished lower mid-table, but for a lot of the seasons, it was a struggle to stay up. And I think the problem that we had with the manager before last, Jim Bentley, he's a club legend. He was with us for 20 years as a player and then as a coach and then as a manager. Absolute fantastic bloke. But the problem that the club had, it was deeply entrenched within us that we were nothing more than survival was a fantastic achievement. If we finished third bottom in League Two, that was going to be the sum total of our season, and maybe get a Premier League side in the League Cup or something at home. That was going to be about the sum total of what we did. So when Jim left, it was a bit of a sea change in terms of where we were going to go and direction, and I think the whole philosophy of the club as well. So the appointment of Derek Adams was one. I think we were a bit surprised that we could get somebody of that caliber to come to Morecambe, really, but straight away we knew that it was going to be completely different in terms of the whole philosophy, not the professionalism, that would be unfair, but certainly we had a lot more belief. We got some good players. Derek also brought some players through that perhaps Jim didn't fancy so much, like Carlos Mendes Gomez, for example. And we started winning a few games. It got to October, November, and we thought, do you know what? We could be in the mix here. Got to Christmas, January, we're still in and around the playoffs. We flirted briefly with automatic promotion. I don't think we're ever seriously going to trouble it. Although, if we'd have beat Bolton in the penultimate game of our season, we would have got third place. So that was slightly gutting in the end. But the whole way the season finished was absolutely unbelievable, and I think well beyond any of our expectations. And here we are, little old Morecambe in League One.
Well, it's fantastic. It really is great. The interesting part for me, another interesting part, is the Derek Adams. You mentioned Derek Adams doing a fantastic job to get you into the playoffs and win the playoffs. And then he leaves shortly afterwards, and obviously gone to Bradford. Does that take away anything from his success because he's going to stay in League Two?
Not really, because we knew. I think people who knew, if that makes sense, knew he was going to be off a long time before the end of the season. I think Bradford were one of a number of clubs who were courting his services, and I think it was very clear that even if we hadn't got promoted, that Derek was going to leave. I think it was a one-season project. He needed a job. We needed a good manager. And I think it all worked out really well for both parties. The one thing that it did leave us, of course, was not much time to then sort ourselves out for this season. I think it was 59 days between the playoff final and the start of the season. And in that time, we obviously had to recruit a manager. A lot of our players were either out of contract or we decided not to offer them a new deal. So when Stephen Robinson came in, which I think was probably about as good an appointment in terms of a manager as we could have attracted, well, I'm sure we had a lot of good applications, purely being a League One club. He had a lot of work to do. He had to recruit basically a whole new squad, had to get them to gel, and he did that all within about 4 or 5 weeks. So to be from that point to where we are now, I think is quite the achievement, really.
Yeah, no,
I've got a question, Dave, on Derek Adams, and this is looking purely from an outsider's point of view. It strikes me as a manager who's not particularly big on player relationships.
You're going to say Kevin Ellison, aren't you?
No, I'm not actually. But obviously that cap obviously fits. It just, I don't know. It just, I don't know the bloke other than from what I've seen over Morecambe's, the back end of Morecambe's season last season. And he just, I don't know. Am I sort of wide of the mark with that, or?
No, I think he has a very particular way, if I can put it like that. He, we all have different personalities, I suppose, Mick, don't we? Yeah. It's what makes the world go round. I think in Derek's case, could he have handled certain players a bit better? I don't think there's any doubt about that, really. I think the way that, from a personal point of view, and this isn't by any means a view of the club, it's my personal view, I think he could have handled the Kevin Ellison situation better. Obviously, he was with you guys for quite a while. He was with us for 10 years. Great guy. He's our top goal scorer in the Football League. And I think even when he got jettisoned out of the club, he still had something to offer us as he's gone to Newport and he's shown.
Yeah,
100%. And I think he was well worthy of his new contract at Newport for this season. It'd be great to see a 43-and-a-half-year-old playing in the Football League this season. It'd be absolutely amazing. But he has very particular methods and very particular ways of doing stuff. And I think you're right, Mick. It is very much a case of you do things his way or you don't do it at all. But as he's proven with Plymouth and obviously with ourselves, then it gets results, doesn't it? So, you don't have to be popular to be successful.
100%. Absolutely. From an outsider's point of view, and again, the Kevin Ellison thing was, it kind of stuck a little bit for me because obviously it put so much into Morecambe. And what a fantastic professional. As you alluded to, he was with us for a while as well. And then obviously it came to yourselves, and every time we played, you scored against us. But yeah, it just, I don't know. You would expect, I guess, a little bit of solidarity with somebody who's given so much of his career to a club.
It was a shame, to be honest, Mick. It was a shame how it ended with Kevin, because not only had he given the playing side, but when Jim Bentley left, he took over as in caretaker charge for the 2 games before we appointed the new manager. So he was well in the mix, and for him to be just frozen out immediately, he was left to train on his own. He wasn't allowed to come to the ground on home games. He wasn't treated well at all, and I think the club, looking back, would probably in hindsight say, you know what, we've made a bit of an error there, but what's done is done, and good luck to him.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, some managers work that way as long as it's successful. We even in a recent past we talked to a former Rotherham player, former Morecambe player, Ben Pringle. When he was at Andy Scott, he had similar treatments. He was told not to come to the ground, lied about certain things, but Andy Scott wasn't successful. Derek Adams was. That's sort of the difference in the end result and how you can be viewed in certain things. So it's successful. That's how it goes. Stephen Robinson came in. Now, for an English, unless you support Oldham, most English football fans will not really know much about him. Tell us what we should know about Stephen Robinson.
So Stephen Robinson had a very successful playing career, a midfielder in the late 90s and through the noughties, most notably with Bournemouth. Predominantly in the second tier, but I think he's played a few in the Premier League, but he had a good career 400 or 500 professional appearances, Northern Ireland international. But as a manager, he's had a bit of a mixed bag. He had an absolutely disastrous season managing Oldham a few years ago. Didn't win many games, but I think, as we alluded to before we came on air, Oldham is an absolute mess of a club at the moment, isn't it? There's no, on and off the field, there's so much wrong with them. So I think we can give him that because he didn't have the tools to work with. He went to Motherwell, got them third in the Scottish Premiership, got them to cup finals, got them into Europe, and I think he left Motherwell with quite a heavy heart, and for reasons not particularly to do with how they were performing on the pitch at the time. So their loss is very much our gain. I think he's one of those managers who, if you are a fan of an EFL club, you might have heard of him as a player and vaguely remember him when he was a pro, but you wouldn't necessarily know who he is as a manager unless you do a bit of research. But I think we've certainly fallen on our feet. The board of directors at the club have obviously done their research, similar to what they did with Derek Adams, I suppose. They didn't want to appoint a name, and they certainly didn't want to appoint somebody without any track record at all. And I've kind of met in the middle with a youngish, I think he's 46, so he's got a bit of pedigree behind him. Obviously an international player as well, so he knows the game inside out, and well, so far so good, really.
It's interesting, Dave, that you said about him doing well in Scotland, because that reminds us of a certain manager who did well in Scotland and then came to us.
Oh, no.
Well, every experience is different, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, Alan.
You shall not be named.
Alan, anybody else? Yeah, we'll not name him. Every Rotherham fans who knows what we're talking about. Let's leave it there.
I have to say
Go on, mate.
Sorry, Matt, go on.
No, go on, mate.
I was going to say the way he's hit the ground running. I think it's the one thing that has impressed everybody, both in and out the club, is we had so much to do. If you take away the fact that we had to prepare for League One for the first time in our history, he came without a squad. I think we had 2 contracted players when he signed. We managed to keep another 4 or 5 more. Pretty much kept everybody from the League Two promotion team that we wanted to keep, but he had to completely rebuild the squad, and it's a combination of loans, free transfers, as I suppose it would have to be for a club of our level. Maybe taking a chance on a few, let's not call them rough diamonds, but certainly players who have proven themselves at maybe a slightly lower level, who we think are going to do well in League One. And I think he's got a good mix together, really. 17 players he's signed in total, with the 2 who he signed in the last few days. So, well, that's pretty much a whole match day squad, isn't it? Brand new. So you could say, well, it might take time to gel, but he's got them playing pretty well so far, it has to be said.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be fair, I mean, maybe it's a Scottish thing, but I mean, 17 players, that's half a day's work for Steve Evans. Our manager. So, I mean, we signed 17 in a week, every week while he was manager for us. Yeah, no, it sounds like he's done a really, really good job under difficult circumstances. So
we will definitely there's no doubt at all, we'll definitely have one of the lowest budgets in the league. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I think we big ourselves up perhaps a little bit more than what our resources do allow. But if you look through our squad, I think he's acquired really well. He's picked up some great free transfers. He's picked up some really young, hungry players. He's gone back up to Scotland for a few of those. Of course, a patch he knows really well. And we've also recruited from a bit lower down the pyramid as well. So it's a real mix. If you combine that with the quality from our League Two promotion winning squad, I think we've done pretty well, all things considered, as early days as it is at the moment, but so far so good.
We talked about before we started recording about how people shouldn't underestimate Morecambe. We've got David Scrivens in the comments suggesting that if we can't beat Morecambe on Tuesday, we're in for a long hard season. Nick Towers comes to the defence straight away. Would that be the same Morecambe that drew Ipswich, beat Blackburn Rovers, and beat Shrewsbury? It's this is what we get this summer when we talked about before we start recording. When we go to the Championship, we get little old Rotherham. Is this what you're finding, that people are going, oh, it's Morecambe, we should be beating teams like Morecambe?
Every single bookie, Matt, that I saw had Morecambe 21st or lower in the table at the end of the season. I think we were at best around about just under even money to beat the drop. Most bookies had us odds on to be absolutely relegated. And I suppose that is fair enough, given history and given our first time in the league and given the turnover of players. I absolutely understand as an outsider why you might come to that conclusion. But the one thing I would say to you gents is, and I would say the same to any club that Morecambe play this season, is you underestimate us at your peril. You really do. And that's not being, Johnny Big Potatoes. I'm from Morecambe. I'm gonna give you the big one. But I genuinely think in the 3 games that we've seen so far, yes, it's early days in the season, but we've just seen so much quality, not just in the individual players that have taken to the field, but also in the way that we've played, the way that we believe in ourselves, the way he's got us going as a team. And there's just, from our point of view, there's so much to be positive about. And I think, as you alluded to, Matt, as well, which is very important, from an opposition's point of view, you don't want to be playing a promoted side who are full of the adrenaline of getting promotion early on in the following campaign. That can be a recipe for disaster. We're not going to underestimate you, of course not. I would have you guys down as one of the, if not automatic favourites, then certainly well in the mix this season. I'm sure you would agree that you would hope to be well up there come the end of April. But underestimate us tomorrow at your peril. We have got some really, really good players.
That concerns me.
It's a bit of a, isn't it? Yes, you're outgoing that.
One of the things I would say is that Paul Warne will not underestimate anybody. No. That's certainly the case. I think certain members of our fan base will clearly be of that opinion. That like David said, we should be beating teams like Morecambe. Well, we've gone through this teams like scenario every other season for the past 3 years. When we've been in Championship, should be beating teams like Rotherham, and they don't always. There's very little to choose between the top of the Championship and probably mid to lower table League One. The difference in quality is not massive.
I agree, Mick. I agree. I think from our point of view, we are very happy to stay under the radar for as long as possible. Because if we can do that, if we can do that and keep picking up results as we have been doing for the next 6 weeks to 2 months, we get to October, we may already have 20 or more points on the board, and we're halfway to survival, aren't we? When we're nowhere near Christmas. And I think from a realistic point of view, it would be lovely for us to say, we're going to walk this league. We should have 6 points on the board, and we've beaten the Championship side in the Carabao Cup, and isn't it wonderful? But I think if you are realistic, of course, at some point the bubble will burst and we will go on a bad run. That might well start on Tuesday night. Quite possibly. I hope it doesn't, of course. But I think when it does, we need to just keep our feet on the ground and realise that, well, do you know what? We are a good side, but hopefully by that point we'll have enough on the board to have a good foothold in League One. But certainly at the moment, there's not really been anything to worry us in terms of opposition. And of course, you'll argue, I suppose, that Tuesday night's going to be different, but we'll see.
Yes, absolutely. Two games, league games so far. Big win against Shrewsbury, and the draw against Ipswich is the one that raised their eyebrows the most, because everybody pre-season's thinking Ipswich has spent quite a lot of money in transfer fees and a lot in wages. But we were talking beforehand, you were very, very unlucky not to pick up all 3 points away at the favourites of the league.
It was a fantastic occasion at Portman Road, especially after 18 months of not having any fans inside stadiums, which has been absolutely horrendous. I mean, I've been lucky enough, or unlucky enough, whichever way your point of view is, to work at games last season into empty stadiums. And just to have 50 or so directors sat behind you, and you can hear every single comment from the bench and the substitutes echoing around big stadiums. Absolutely an experience that nobody ever wants to repeat ever again. So to have 21,000 people in Portman Road last Saturday, the atmosphere just absolutely blew the roof off. It was tremendous. But Ipswich, neat and tidy. They've obviously got a lot more to give than what they showed against us. You can see the quality that they had, but we didn't allow them to play. We didn't allow them to settle. And I think I'll talk about this in a second, but that's the way, from early indications, that Stephen Robinson sets his sides up. We are very much on the front foot, high press, high tempo. And I think we caught Ipswich a bit by surprise, really. And as soon as we went 2-1 up, we looked pretty comfortable. It was a bit of a lucky equaliser for them, really. It was just a long punt upfield by their goalkeeper. We were unlucky midway inside our own half to lose a flick on, and suddenly he was through and he slips it in for 2-2. But we probably should have won that. Shrewsbury, I thought, were a very, very average team. Again, they knocked it around amongst themselves okay, but no real threat, no real creativity. And once we scored, on Saturday, there was only ever going to be one winner, and it was going to be us. So in terms of the 2 games we played so far, so far so good, and we've not really had much to fear. Certainly the 3 results that we've had, we've deserved all three of them, and arguably we deserve to have won all 3 games. I'm really big in the club up here, Matt. We'll revisit that on Wednesday morning, perhaps. But I think we are confident, quietly confident. But why shouldn't we be? We're happy with our recruitment. The one thing that is evident that we haven't had in previous seasons is we've got strength in depth. I think previous campaigns, even maybe last season, actually, you would look at the bench or you'd look at the people who weren't in the 17, 18 match day squad, and you think, if such and such gets injured, or if we lose him or he gets suspended, where's the replacement coming? But we've already seen he's picked 3 quite different teams in the 3 games so far, and all the players who have come and then been benched and then come back in again, none of them have looked out of place. None of them, and I think that's a really, really encouraging sign.
Cool. Come on let's talk about a few individual players. We've got a Leeds fan for some reason talking about Diaguara not being a very good footballer. When he played for Rotherham, he didn't do very well either, to be fair.
Wow.
And what you thought? Because he's somebody that some Rotherham fans will be aware he did play for us. Am I right in saying he's done very, very well for Morecambe?
I think he's one of our best players, Matt, to be honest. I think his nickname amongst the fans is the Vieira of the Bay. And to me, he is, we describe him in commentary as a Rolls Royce footballer. I think he's the kind of player who, when the ball comes his way, because his first touch is so good, it gives him extra time to whatever he wants to do. He does the simple things well. He just glides across the field quite effortlessly. He's obviously one of our most experienced players as well. He's 34 now. So he's been around the block quite a few times. But for me, he is a fantastic footballer and complements the way that Stephen Robinson wants to set his team up so well. I think he's one of those players, similar to a couple of others in our squad who I'll mention in a second. He's one of those players who it's the right player at the right club at the right point of his career, if that makes sense. I think there are a lot of good players that go to the wrong club and it doesn't work out for them and they don't get on with the fans or the style of play, whatever it might be. But in Big Toombs' case, Big Dave's case, can't call him Big Dave on commentary because that gets a bit confusing. But Toombs is a phenomenal footballer. He's one of our best players by some way.
We had him when he was very young, and I think you're right. That was one of those cases where it was wrong man at the wrong time.
Yeah,
the wrong
absolutely,
age.
absolutely. He's effortless. He's effortless. He just does everything with a touch of class. And I think every team needs that kind of central midfielder where it's just everything they do is just effortless. And he's going to be such a key player for us this season.
Will Daniels asks, where are Morecambe's danger players? Is there anybody that you can pick out that will provide us with the biggest threat?
He's nicked me question, the beggar.
Well, in terms of how we set up, Stephen didn't really give. I'm not sure whether he's a Stephen or a Steve or a Robbo. Let's just call him the gaffer. Stephen didn't really give much away in pre-season because I think it was more about giving minutes to players and trialists and how it goes, isn't it? But he's got a very distinctive way of playing. Did it at Motherwell, and he's brought that to Morecambe. He plays a 4-3-3. It's what I call a flexible 4-3-3. So it's a flat back four. Likes the fullbacks to push on in attack wherever possible. Quite happy to let left and right back maraud forward when the mood takes them. It's then a sitting midfielder, which is Toombs, and then two with a bit more freedom to go forward. A central striker and two wide players, two orthodox wingers, if you will. He likes to play with width left and right. So in terms of our attacking play, we've got to talk about Cole Stockton, obviously. Again, a bit like Toombs, I think he's been around the block a bit and he's gone to other clubs, Carlisle and Tranmere, and it's not quite worked out for him, but he's found his home from home here. And certainly over the last season or so, now whether that's the Derek Adams effect and Stephen Robinson's just carrying on that good work, whether he's just matured as a footballer, I don't know. But to me, he's the all-round centre forward. He's happy with his back to goal. He can hold up the play, brings in the midfielders and the wide men, scores his share of goals, and just causes a real nuisance to whoever's marking him. So whoever's on him from your end on Tuesday is going to have their work cut out. You'll need to put a big physical presence on him. We had Aaron Pierre marking him from Shrewsbury on Saturday, and if you've ever played Shrewsbury, he's quite wide, Aaron Pierre. He's one of these players that you need to call a taxi to get around him kind of way. And he just spent the whole game just hugging him, literally just had his arms around him every time the ball came near him, apart from when Cole scored, of course. But he's got 4 goals already this season. Again, very early days, but he's deserved all 4 of them, and he's very much our danger man. We've also got the width. We've got Josh McPake, young winger on loan from Rangers. He made his debut on Saturday, looked absolutely terrific. We've got other attacking players, Arthur Nua, Wes McDonald. We've got a good number of attacking threats, and Adam Phillips as well in midfield. He's on loan for the season from Burnley. Bit of a story about Adam. We had him last season. He was absolutely terrific. He then went to Accrington in the January transfer window. A lot of fans didn't like that, of course, because he thought he was abandoning us. Didn't really get a kick for Accrington in League One. And we've managed to bag him again on a full season loan this season. And he looks the real deal. He's certainly a player who will play far, far higher than League One. So we've got threats from all over the park, really. So, like I say, just be on your guard and underestimate us at your peril.
In fact, you're saying you play with width concerns because we're playing a 3-5-2, but our wing backs are out and out wingers. They're not defenders. So the fact that if you're attacking that way, that may suggest to us that, assuming we have done his homework, I'm sure Paul Warren will do his homework. That we had defensive formation.
I say flexible because when we played Blackburn in the Carabao Cup last Tuesday, they played 3 at the back. And for the first half, they played us off the park. We were just annihilated. And we went in 1-0 down. And then at half-time, he switched things around and we matched them up. And we just matched them man for man. And we went on to win the game. Saturday, Shrewsbury also played 3 at the back. And we kept 4-3-3 throughout the whole of the match and won at a canter, really. So he's not afraid to match it up if not. But I think if your wing-backs are more attacking-minded than defensive-minded, then we might get a bit of joy down the flanks, perhaps.
Yeah. Possibly.
Bless you,
Mick.
I apologise. That's my mother sneezing in the other room. Sneeze quietly. Sorry about that. Back to the football. I do have a question for you, Dave. You say you play 4-3-3, very flexible 4-3-3, and as Matt says, we play 3-5-2 with our quick wingers more or less in the middle, but we do have a bit of a defensive job as well. Now, not to blow our own trumpet, we have one of the strongest midfields in the division in terms of on paper stats, if you like. Do you expect a midfield battle between your 3 and our 5 in terms of getting dominance on the ball, or will you sit off and let us have the ball and then, like you say, what you did with Shrewsbury, try and hit us on the counter attack?
I think the one thing that we have been used to over the last year is under Derek Adams, we had the lowest possession stats in the whole of the EFL in all 3 divisions. We 25 to 30% possession most games. Very happy to sit back. You won't hurt us because you'll just pass it around in your own half and then we'll hit you. Boom. We won't create many chances, but the chances we will create will be good ones and we'll score enough to win the game. And that worked really well. Obviously got us promotion. I think Stephen is a bit more pragmatic. I think in terms of midfield battle, if you are outnumbering us in midfield, we'll be happy for you to keep possession. There's no doubt about that. We are very happy to bide our time. But when we hit you, the one thing that has struck me in over these last first few games is that we're not afraid to run at you. So it won't be hit and hope. It won't be route one. It won't be plan A, no plan B. We will come at you with pace again and again and again. I think Steve Cottrell on Saturday and also Tony Mowbray, Blackburn manager, he described us as a team of absolute athletes, as he put it. I don't think that's far off the mark, really. Full of running, very, very fit. Not overly physical, not a dirty team by any stretch, but we'll certainly show our physicality when we need to. And we'll be happy for you to have the ball as long as you're not hurting us. You can pass it around in your half all day long, Danny. It doesn't matter to us.
That's interesting because for our 2 league games, we've had about 40% possession in both of them. So that, I don't know what that says about us, but we've won one with 40% possession and then lost one with 40%. so that's interesting. It's a matchup between 2 teams that don't like having the ball. Yeah, that's what I mean with that. It should be a very interesting midfield battle because our midfield likes to ping it long or ping it out wide to everybody. But if it's 2 teams who don't like having the ball, where's the ball going to be? Is it just going to be with the ball boy on the sideline?
Well, maybe we're doing ourselves a bit of a disservice now. I mean, we're happy to have possession and knock it around if that's the way that the game is going to go. I think if you're playing 3-5-2, you will have an extra man in the centre of the park. There's no doubt about that. So I think by definition, you'll probably see more of the ball than we do. But I think from our point of view, it's what you do when you've got possession. It's all about the quality. I think the one thing that has impressed me is we haven't been rushed in the final third. We're getting to the edge of the box and we're not rushing to get the cross in. If it's not on, we'll play it back or sideways and try and fashion a better opportunity and wait for the right pass and the right moment to make that to really make it count. But I know you've got a great midfield, Danny. I think that's one area where I'm not saying you're going to come out on top. I think we've got some great midfielders ourselves, but that's certainly going to be a good battle, I think, on Tuesday.
Glad I've got a ticket for it.
Are you behind the goal, Danny, or are you in the seats?
I'll get my ticket and ask you. I am in.
Are you in the Denison stand or the Beyond Radio stand?
I'm in the Beyond Radio stand.
So you're going to be down the side in the seats. So you'll be sort of level with the penalty area kind of spot.
Well, that's annoying. I paid for a terracing ticket.
Oh dear. Let's finish on one last question from Will Daniels. He's asking, how is Morecambe's left side defensively? The reason he asks is because he mentions there we've got Chiawog Bene, who is plays right wing back, but he's a winger. He has been superb. But when he was fit, the Championship was superb, and in both league games so far, he caused Wigan all sorts of problems. It's the same with the Plymouth left back. I'd an absolute nightmare. How do you think Morecambe could set up against somebody like who's just got lightning pace and can put a ball in? We've
also got a very quick left back in the form of Greg Lee. One of the many new signings in the summer. He's only actually come into the club because our regular left back Liam Gibson has got a damaged collarbone at the moment. Went off against Blackburn. Looked like he'd got a dislocated shoulder or a broken collarbone when it first done, but it's only a bruise. He won't quite be back for Saturday, I don't think, although he's running again. But we've got pace in the form of Greg Lee, so you've got to get past him. That's saying you can get past Big Toombs in holding midfield first. But once you've got past him, good luck. But we know that's going to be another battle as well. I think you've obviously got undoubted quality down that side, and certainly one to watch out for. I was going to ask you, Matt, about Curtis Tilt as well. I know it's nothing strictly to do with Morecambe, but I can fill you guys in a little bit on Curtis Tilt, because when I was doing some missionary work in another part of Lancashire a few years ago, I was doing some Blackpool games. I commentated on Curtis many times, and I think you've got a really good defender. I really do. I think you've got a really, really good player. Curtis's problem is he's got to get himself fully fit. I think he came to you with a chronic hip complaint, which he'd played with at Blackpool for a good season at least. Still played really well. He was our player of the season in his first season. And I don't think you've not seen hardly any of him, have you? But I think if you can get him fit, I think he'll be a real asset for you. And I know not everybody agrees with that assessment, but you have got a really good defender there.
Yeah, he's played literally an hour. He came on against in the last game before the season ended, before lockdown. He played an hour, and he clearly wasn't fit. He only played because we were down to bare bones. And then I think last season, Paul Warne talked him up his pre-season, saying he had a fantastic pre-season. Got another injury. And we talked to a Wigan fan player who played Wigan that weekend. Did this with a Wigan fan. He said similar sort of thing, saying they were really, really impressed with him last season. Were a massive part of them staying up last season. I'm looking forward to it. He's only a couple of weeks here from being fit again. So
I think you've got a really good player. I know a lot of people who have seen him play say, "Oh, he's got a mistake in him. He's a little bit lackadaisical," and yeah, maybe that could be true. But he's a rock solid defender at League One level. There's no doubt about that. And it was no surprise that a Championship side came calling for him when they did, because that was the level that he deserved to play at. And if he's fully fit, I think you're going to have a great player.
There isn't a central defender in any division that ain't going to mistake him, is there?
Well, with Curtis, he likes to, instead of putting his laces through it and smashing it up the field or, whatever, he'll try and Cruyff turn the centre forward on the edge of his own box. And he's one of these that he tries to pull away from his man and then draw the foul. He's one of those defenders. And let the danger go that way, and sometimes he gets caught out that way. But I think you've got a great player on your hands. I would happily have him at Morecambe, no question about that. But that said, we've got our own great central defensive pairing. I think Sam Lavelle, especially alongside Anthony O'Connor, rock solid. Hopefully, we can keep Sam. Strong rumours that he might go to Wycombe before the end of the window. I think that would be a bit of a sideways move for him, to be honest. And he is out of contract at the end of the season, though. So if he goes, he'll be going on the cheap. But hopefully we can keep him, because he's obviously our club captain and honestly one of our best players. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely. I'll finish off by asking you for a score prediction, if you can, Dave.
I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. And it would be really lovely to say, well, we beat Shrewsbury easily and we should have beat Ipswich. No, we're going to cruise past it. I think this is arguably one of our most difficult games of the season, certainly so far. I personally would love 3 points. I think the atmosphere at the Mazuma on Saturday was absolutely tremendous. There was only 3,500 nearly Morecambe fans in. I imagine it'll be a similar attendance tomorrow, because the stadium capacity is only 6,500. It's I don't know if you've ever been to the Mazuma. It's a 3-sided ground with a brick wall terrace running down the length of one side of the field. But we made a heck of a lot of noise. And I think partly that spurred us on to the result that we got on Saturday. In terms of tomorrow, I think it'll be another good game. I think it'll be quite an open game. We've shown that we can score. We've scored twice in all 3 of our games so far. So I think we can certainly do that again. I would take a point, personally. But again, don't underestimate us. I know I keep repeating myself there, but underestimate us at your peril.
I think the way we've been playing, we'd fancy a point as well.
Yeah.
Oh, Danny, don't join that crew.
Blame Ben from the podcast earlier. He was in such a teenager mood that he rubbed off on me.
Yeah.
I actually think, Danny, I think, and Matt and Mick, that you will be well in the mix at the end of the season. I'm quite sure you will. I think you've got good players across the board. You've obviously got attacking threats. You've got one of the best central midfields in the division. Tight at the back. Once you get Curtis Tiltback, it'll be even better. And I think you're going to be there or thereabouts. I really do. But hopefully that can start on Saturday, not Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. Anybody's listened to the podcast, if that's out Monday morning, so listen to that. We've all done our score predictions in there as well. So do get on that. I think
before we head off, Matt, could I ask Dave one last question, please?
Go for it, mate.
Now, I don't know if you've seen the New York Talk YouTube, Dave, but we've started the vlog series, which is basically me trying to get to every game that I can and filming here, there, and everywhere. Now, Morecambe's going to be our first quote-unquote long away trip of the season, and we've roughly sold 600 tickets as an estimate. Now, which is the best pub for the away fans?
The most important question of the show so far.
Exactly.
We may have lost Dave for the most important question.
No.
Oh, that's couldn't be worse timing, Danny.
Be a few seconds, and hopefully it'll rebuffer itself.
I think we're back. We've got you, Dave.
You're back. Danny, you're back. Say that again.
So, Rotherham, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube, but I do a vlogging series on the YouTube, and Morecambe is the first, quote unquote, long away trip for us. We've got about 600 fans going as a rough estimate. Which is the best pub for the away fans to go in?
Oh, best pub. Well, you've got. Can you hear me? Okay, am I still there?
You've come back now. You went, but you come back now.
I'll come back. Excellent. You've got JB's Bar in the stadium, but that's for home fans only. Really, there's the pub called the William Mitchell, which is about a 3-minute walk from the ground. That's a very friendly pub indeed. You are only around 7 or 8 minute walk to Morecambe Prom from the stadium, and there are a whole host of pubs and bars along there. We are very friendly people in this part of the world. Take your pick from any of those. But I'd recommend getting there early if you can. If it's going to be a nice day on Tuesday, go and have a walk down the Prom, go and have your picture taken with Eric Morecambe statue, and then get in nice and early and enjoy the atmosphere and slip into a tragic defeat. But we'll see how it goes.
Fantastic. Make anything else you want to finish on? Because we've gone long.
No, nothing else. Thank you. Cool. Nothing from me.
So thank you everybody who's watched on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you watched. We do appreciate it. Catch us next week. We'll be back on Thursday night for the next scouting report ahead of Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh, we're not having them on, are we?
We'll find one that's bearable and have them on. Don't worry about it.
I don't think there is one.
But good luck for the season, guys. All the best. Hopefully from Saturday onwards. But thanks for having me on. It's been good fun.
And yourself, hope. Good luck, apart from Tuesday night.
Cheers, Jen.
Thank you very much.
Pringle looking towards Odegaard.